It goes back decades. Armidale is a city needing to expand, but the Numeric Shire is equally determined to retain its ratings base. The latest meeting between the two under the auspices of the Boundaries Commission ruled out amalgamation or Armidale taking over part of Numeric Shire, but urged the councils to work together to find a solution. Applications close next week for a chairman to be employed, not elected, to run future joint planning meetings.
The two local government bodies are really supposed to be able to settle these problems themselves, but if you've talked for a long time and not got very far, well then you really want someone who will aid those discussions, and so someone who's been used to chairing big meetings, who's used particularly perhaps to local government affairs. That's the sort of person we're looking for.
The decision will be made by Alderman Leach and the Numeric Shire President, Councillor John Harvey, along with the Boundaries Commissioner. The Mayor would prefer a local person to help keep expenses down.
With the resources that we have here in this city and at this university, and the people who've retired here who've had largely important jobs both in the law and in government positions, I'm perfectly certain there's someone that we can find here who'd make an excellent chairman.
Numeric Shire's John Harvey declined to comment on the issue until after a council meeting planned for Thursday.
The proposed extension of wilderness areas in the north has attracted criticism from affected landholders and the forestry industry. Both groups fear their livelihood is at stake if the wilderness proposals go ahead. Recent meetings organised by the New South Wales Farmers Association in Armidale and Kempsey have called for the state government to repeal the Wilderness Act and wildlife and wetlands protection laws. The meeting at the Glen Innes Services Club on May 23rd will look at the wilderness proposals and the endangered fauna protection legislation. Organiser Rhonda Neal from the Forest Protection Society says the meeting will also be attended by politicians, as well as an expected crowd of hundreds of landholders and forestry industry representatives.
Even the influx of visitors for the holiday break cannot fully account for the size of the Sutton Spate. Over the last 3 weeks, more than 80 breaking and stealing offences have been reported to police, and they theorise there are others left unrevealed.
Well, the only attributing factor you could say would be that it is school holidays, but that is not saying that school children are responsible for these matters.
In the past 10 days, 18 raids on dwellings and business houses have netted thieves booty worth $23,000. The cheeky robbers are attacking during the day and at night when householders are asleep or even watching television. The strong message is to lock up.
If they go out of their houses to lock and secure all windows and doors, if they're going away for any extended period of time, to let their neighbours know with a contact number, so at least so as their neighbours can keep an eye on the place, and if they receive anything of suspicion they can contact police immediately.
The diverse range of goods taken represents all types of things easily disposed of, like videos, cameras, electrical items and jewellery. There have even been 2 guns stolen and, of course, cash. Detectives can't even say if a particular gang is responsible. They're calling on people to immediately report any suspicious activity, such as a person carrying a bulky bag or something wrapped in a blanket, no matter how seemingly insignificant it might seem to be.
The tranquility of Glenbourne Dam is to provide the backdrop for the 55-hectare Lake Glenbourne resort. The multi-million-dollar project features horse riding, golf, accommodation and restaurants. Central Coast Development Company, TRO Holdings, has a 30 by 30-year lease on the land, currently owned by the Department of Water Resources. Its target market is the family rural holiday.
We believe that there's a big demand for this family-type, rural-type holiday, both for internal tourists and overseas tourists. There's more and more overseas tourists, we believe, want to get off the beaten track and just see what rural Australia life's about.
Horse riding is already up and running. The 9-hole golf course is to the turf laying stage and is expected to open in September this year. The next stage then involves extending accommodation and building a tavern and restaurant. But this is proving difficult.
And we have got some conflict between various land control bodies out here, the Trust, Conservation and Land Department and Water Resources. And through our local member, we've arranged a meeting next month to try and coordinate the activities.
Mr Nunn says without resolution, the entire project could be jeopardised. Scone is considered the thoroughbred capital of Australia. So what better place to build the country's newest and most technically advanced racecourse? Stage 1 of the project is nearing completion. It features 4 courses, the main racetrack plus 3 inner training tracks, the Cinders one already in place. Their design proving horse-friendly.
This is the first racecourse in Australia built for horses and not for people. It's got bank curves, 5 degrees bank on the curves. When a horse turns, his body leans, and if the track is level, his foot remains flat, which puts a lot of stress on his joints and leg joints. With the bank curves, it helps the horse and he remains sound longer.
Underneath the course, a computerised irrigation system worth $500,000 has been installed. The project's final stage involves constructing the grandstand, patron facilities and stables. It was hoped the entire development would be completed in time for the Scone Cup in May next year. But flood conditions in recent months has construction slightly behind schedule. Despite this, Mr Nunn sees a bright future.
Our industry here is the second biggest in the world to Kentucky, and with that potential around the area, yes, I believe it's going to be. It's probably going to develop into a training establishment for some of the bigger trainers in the metropolitan area.
Mr Nunn is also confident of attracting national meetings to Scone. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
That's how Break Free 92 will roll into town when the Christian Crusade gets underway in May. It's a 3-week tour de force of the Hunter, headed by renowned God Squad biker John Smith. In Newcastle today, minus his Harley.
I certainly think that we're a little tired of some of the me generation stuff. We've seen that if you shift ethics out of the marketplace, you end up with chaos.
Break Free 92 will attempt to revive the basic principles that come from an ancient Christian message for the casualties of unemployment and disillusionment, the captains of business and commerce, and the captives of life in the 90s.
We don't want to exploit that. We want to enter into that as a catalyst and help people think through the issues, not just come and say, well, everybody's feeling bad, so we've got a lifeboat, hop on board before the ship goes down.
The concept of the campaign originated from the Lord Mayor of Newcastle's successful prayer breakfasts. A 3-week program of events encompasses sleep-outs, concerts, rallies, breakfasts, business lunches and festivals. Delegates will visit prisons, schools and workplaces.
We want to reconstruct people's thinking, help them to find a way in which the whole of life comes together, and there is a faith aspect of that. But there's also a lot of human aspects, social aspects, structural aspects to life, political aspects. I mean, it's all one with us. We're not convinced that you can separate the divine from the human. It all flows together.
Until a month ago, Gretley Colliery had a workforce of 260. Now it's down to about 200. The remainder have been transferred to other Oakbridge mines near Cessnock and Bulga in the Upper Hunter, a move that the union says has left many of the affected employees unhappy.
Working for most of your life around Wallsend, living around that area, to uproot and take employment in the Hunter Valley area where South Bulga Colliery is situated, where most of them have been transferred to, involves an extra 3 hours a day at least travelling.
Norman Gow from the Newcastle Wallsend Coal Company says the transfers were a necessity. For years, he says, this operation has been accumulating losses. The industry is going through tight times, so to try and ensure that Gretley has a future, the cutbacks have been made. The company wants to increase productivity at Gretley with the trimmed-down workforce. The union is negotiating with Oakbridge to try to achieve that aim, but not at the cost of jobs.
Hopefully with the exercise at Gretley we'll be retaining everybody in employment at this stage.
Only last week, the United Mine Workers Federation launched a public campaign called Survival 92 to try to save jobs in the Hunter's coal industry. But Mr Murray fears more of the region's miners could be headed for unemployment.
There are many marginal operations around, and no, I couldn't say with any confidence that we won't be going through this sort of exercise at a number of operations.
Today, detectives retraced the path the 19-year-old woman had taken as she was walking home from the centre of Wallsend. Just after 7 o'clock, she noticed a man staggering from the direction of the nearby RSL club. The woman, who is 5 months pregnant, decided to rest. She sat on the curb of a service station car park and watched the man pass by at what she thought was a safe distance. The young woman was grabbed from behind. She was punched to the side of the head as her attacker tried to grab a shoulder bag from her grasp. She fell to the ground and was kicked to the stomach before the attacker made off with the bag. The woman screamed throughout the attack and finally ran battered and crying for help from the service station attendant. The alarm was raised and police began combing the neighbourhood.
It was quite a callous attack. The person we're searching for is about 20 to 25 years of age, 6 foot or about 180 centimetres tall, and he was last seen wearing blue jeans and no shirt. He's got red short-cropped hair and a bit of a stubble.
Although badly bruised, the woman is in a satisfactory condition. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
In Taree, several generations marched together, from those who served and set the Anzac tradition to veterans of a very different war and a new generation embracing both. With the Manning River as a backdrop, they remembered. At Coffs Harbour, they gathered to pay homage to the fallen at local war graves.
These two war graves represent all of the servicemen and women that are buried both here at Coffs Harbour Cemetery and also at Karangi and all other war graves in this area.
And afterwards they gathered for an Anzac breakfast. Not exactly bully beef, but after a dawn service just what the doctor ordered, with a little two-up to wash it down. Further north in Ballina they gathered at the RSL club before heading off. They marched with the memory of almost a century of wars, from the gullies of Gallipoli to the Vietnam jungle. Medal-festooned men and women marched, applauded by hundreds lining the streets who came to watch, to applaud, to remember. It's 8 decades since the diggers stormed the shores of Gallipoli, but the significance of their efforts is still not lost.
The proverbial sun, sand, surf, small waves and big boards. The Byron Bay Malibu Classic. It's Australia's oldest Malibu contest. 200 surfers swarming all over the country's most eastern point this weekend. And it's not just veterans either. 5 classes are being contested, grommets right through to the Masters. And women are walking the plank as well. It's a tough time for judges, sheltered in the shade, eyes peeled for point scoring. And the finals are on Tuesday. Barraba in the green hoops. The Rams wasted no time stamping their authority on the match with some bone-jarring defence. The kick in the head from his teammate wouldn't have helped either. Last year's grand finalist paid the price for some sloppy play, dropping the pill, and Barraba pounced. Another Rams raid, the backline did the trick. (19-8) the final score. Barraba now moves to second place on the ladder.
Newcastle Beach was centre stage for the inaugural fundraising carnival, which saw clubs from as far away as Sydney and north to Blackhead near Taree represented. First event, the 8-kilometre biathlon. A dozen athletes started the 2-kilometre run through the city streets, then doubled back for a short swim in cool 20-degree water. Keeping up with competitors half his age, 51-year-old John Schindler of Caves Beach. Out of the water first, Manly's David Lyle. He maintained this lead on the last run leg to take line honours. First woman home, Manly's Courtney Ellis. Next, the 7-kilometre ski race attracting 14 entrants. From an initially bunched field, it was Chris Bond of the entrants who emerged the winner. The marathon surfboat race starting in Newcastle Harbour was an all-local affair between Swansea Belmont, Nobbies and Redhead. Outside the heads, seas turned slightly choppy. Nobbies handling conditions the best to take first prize. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
So what's wrong with one collection a month? Independent Alderman John Tate says we're basically creatures of habit.
It's very convenient when you put your recycled materials out once a week in a container provided by the council. It's not convenient when you have to batch them up, put them out and wait days for them to be collected.
Hence the figures which show only 17% of Novocastrians are using council's recycling service, and that represents a 200% increase. Council's looking to make some changes to its garbage services. Alderman Tate says a good time to pounce with ideas to make their garbage green.
The suggestion of going to one-man garbage trucks will provide a saving, it's suggested. That money could be put into the investment for the recycling.
Council recently produced a solid waste management strategy. It estimates a weekly service could cost ratepayers more than $600,000 a year. Or put it another way, $12 a house.
Now that's $1 a month, 25 cents a week. I think everybody would be prepared to be involved in that.
Australian Submarine Corporation Chief Dr. Williams returned to the company's headquarters in Adelaide from Manila yesterday, confident that the company had won a $220 million contract to build patrol boats for the Philippines. Most of the work is planned for the company's shipyards at Tomago, but Australian Submarine Corporation Newcastle manager Keith Lynch says he doesn't want to raise Newcastle's hopes before the contract is signed.
We are confident we're going to get there over this Philippines patrol boat contract. But my concern is that people have an expectation that it's about to happen tomorrow or next week.
The deciding factor is the Philippines' elections to be held on May 11. The Aquino government is reluctant to confirm the deal before polling day, and a change of government could set back the whole process.
With the election coming up next month, there's some reluctance in some quarters in the Philippines, as I understand it, to sign up this contract before that election.
But Mr Lynch is confident that it's now just a case of when, not if, the contract is awarded, and the spin-off for Newcastle will be considerable.
We're looking at direct employment of at least 100 people for 2 to 3 years, but behind that there's a significant amount of subcontracting in Newcastle will go on as well, probably 2 or 3 times that.
Meanwhile, the shipyard continues to construct hull sections for Australia's new Collins-class submarines. Work on the project is expected to expand in July or August, increasing the current workforce from 60 to about 80. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The building, constructed in the 1960s, is owned by Queensland businessman Theo Morris, whose financial fortunes have changed like many others in these recessionary times. The Local Government Act allows properties to be auctioned by a local government body to recoup overdue rates once those payments become more than 5 years in arrears. Persistent efforts by Newcastle City Council to recover the money have been ignored by Mr Morris, and it now says it will go ahead with an auction in September. Latec House has been on the real estate market for some time. It's reported that several offers have been made for the property, but apparently none measured up to the owner's requirements. It remains to be seen if this latest move by Newcastle Council will change Mr Morris's expectations of what the property is worth.
Paul Harrigan has been a tower of strength for the Knights as they surged towards the top of the ladder, and the young giant repaid country selectors twofold on Friday night. Backing up 48 hours later, however, and some of the gloss faded with a knee injury that may just sideline Harrigan.
I went and saw the specialist today down in Sydney, and for precautionary reasons, and he thinks it shouldn't be too bad. And I'll be ringing again tomorrow to see how it goes overnight, and I think I should be right past the flying colours tomorrow.
No such problems for Robbie McCormick, whose form has been sensational. After suffering cruel injuries in 1989 and also last year, the little dynamo capped a fairy tale comeback with selection on the Origin bench.
It makes the loss a lot easier today, so I still don't know what I'm doing at the moment.
Did you give yourself any chance?
No, none at all. I didn't think about it. Like a few people say, all the best and that, but as far as having a chance, I didn't regard myself about 1,000 to 1 chance.
Disappointment for Mark Sargent and Michael Hagan, however, missing the New South Wales and Queensland sides respectively. Yesterday's battle with the Broncos was a classic, with debate still raging of the Matthew Rodwell no try. The young halfback is in no doubt.
I definitely grounded the ball, whether it was just over the line, I think it was, but unfortunately Graham Ansley ruled it a no try, but the picture in today's paper I thought cleared it up a bit. That was just before the momentum stopped, but definitely was a try. Yeah.
But Rodwell, although upset at not scoring, didn't see it as a turning point in the match.
We were disappointed we lost the 2 points, but I think we were pretty pleased with their overall effort. That was one of the fastest games most of the guys have ever played. So in that respect, I think we're pretty pleased with that.
And a reminder of full replay on NBN tonight from 10:30.
A full-scale investigation into the fire began early this morning as detectives and scientific police attempted to establish the cause of the blaze. It's believed the fire broke out in timber stored under the building at Ingle Street in Mayfield at about midnight. Although there's no evidence of flammable liquid being used, police do suspect the fire was deliberately lit. Flames quickly took hold, destroying 2 rooms before local brigades arrived.
It was a fairly intense fire. There's quite a bit of damage inside the premises. Because of the age of the building and being old weatherboard construction, there's a lot of work to be done on it now to bring it back to scratch.
Evidence of the intensity of the blaze, scorched and blistered paint on neighbouring homes several metres away. Police interviewed surrounding residents, but no one noticed anything unusual before the fire took hold. The house wasn't insured. Meanwhile, a derelict schoolhouse at Mount White near Gosford has been destroyed overnight. 2 fire units went to the school at 8:30 p.m. and spent several hours fighting the blaze. The schoolhouse, which dates back to the turn of the century, had been vacant for several years, but was used as a polling place during recent state elections. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
If you're wondering where some of the state's top-line bowlers are, Lake Cat Eye's the answer, a normally sleepy village south of Port Macquarie. 4 times Big Bowls champion Bomaderry's Bob King is back, but he's not off to a good start, going down in round 1 to Alan Baker, 25-23. Hometown favourite John Snell is there. The hub of the Hunter runner-up has won his first 2 games. Other first-up winners Bob Dunn from the South Coast and Swansea's Robert Thompson. The 24 are fighting it out for $3,000 in prize money. The semi-final and final will be played on Thursday.
The cane toad was caught 2 weeks ago by a Mount Hutton resident in this bushland known as Scrubby Creek.
When they found the frog, and it was positively identified, it was put in their freezer until such time as we could come and collect it and take it to the university for dissection to find out whether it was a male or a female.
It's not the only toad to have been found in the area. 3 weeks ago, another cane toad was caught, plus there's been an unconfirmed sighting. The 3 instances causing alarm bells to ring.
We're so concerned because there may actually be a breeding colony that's already been established in this area.
Cane toads can lay up to 50,000 eggs each year. If a breeding colony has been established in the wetland area, the toads could spread quickly, requiring an expensive eradication program. The amphibians pose a threat to protected native species like wetland birds, as well as domestic animals. The toad has a toxin which, if ingested, is poisonous. Mr. Malt is appealing for greater vigilance from residents in the area and recommends contacting the National Parks and Wildlife Service should anyone catch a toad. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Dr John Duggan and a team of researchers have spent more than a year analysing aluminium cans from Australia and around the world. They've found that the more acidic drinks, such as cola or citrus-based soft drinks, tend to dissolve and absorb aluminium from their containers.
There's a lot of evidence for, there's a lot of evidence against. Nobody really knows the answer, and as the Americans say, the jury is still out on this one. There's no clear answer yet.
Is there cause for alarm at this stage?
There is no cause for alarm at this stage. That is quite clear.
Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia, which affects up to 140,000 Australians, is associated with the accumulation of aluminium in the brain.
I think the next step is up to the industry to make sure that the quality control in their canning is top rank, so that they don't have imperfections in the can to dissolve the aluminium out.
The chilly waters of the Wallace Lake was the only cool part of a day that promised the 680 athletes aches and pains from somewhere between 8 and 14 hours for the stragglers. After the 3.8 kilometre swim, not much in it, with all the favoured competitors, including the defending champ Curie, right on the pace. The women surprised by being some of the first out of the water. Ahead, a bike ride of 180 k's, and to get the athletes through, plenty of bananas and heaps of water. If that wasn't enough, the final leg in and around Foster Tuncurry was a full marathon, and Kuru really stamped his authority on the race. He crossed to thunderous applause, a clear-cut winner. A makeshift flag waved proudly overhead. Lisa Bonham made it 4 wins in the big event, and even a severe shoulder injury couldn't hide her delight at breaking the tape.
How to dispose of sewage and its sludge byproduct is a question that confronts every region in every country. In the Hunter, the Water Corporation's answer to the sludge disposal question has been to propose dumping it down disused mines under the new $50 million Burwood Beach treatment plant. That proposal becomes reality next month when the plant begins operation, creating 3,000 tonnes of sludge a year. It's not a new proposal. Similar methods have been tried in South Africa and Sweden, which engineer Kathy Coles studied during a recent 2-week tour. Ms Coles says the Swedish experience of dumping sludge in caverns is similar to the Burwood Beach idea.
They have been operating for over 12 months now. They've put about 30,000 tonnes of sludge down, which is about 10 times what we'll produce in a year, and been very successful. They have a monitoring program which we were able to compare, and ours is somewhat more extensive.
Far less successful have been the 50 years of dumping in Witbank, South Africa, where an acidic cocktail has leaked from the mines into the local rivers, wreaking environmental havoc. But in her report, Ms Coles says the sewage was not the cause of the problem, and the South African example cannot be compared to the Hunters.
The mine waters here aren't acid, which is one of their problems, and the mine is also much deeper, and their problem is that they've got shallow mines and outflow of acid waters that are generated because of the characteristics of the coal.
Hunter Water's proposal has been under fire, with Newcastle City Council demanding an environmental impact statement before dumping begins. But for Hunter Water, the study tour has given only reassurance to dump the sludge in the mines.
We've come up with a very economic scheme, and one we think will be very successful, and that others will probably be interested to follow.
All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Declared unanimous but one.
Into the 21st century.
You will see there any demented half-wit who's going to take it out on his... your guns for the very same stated reason of firm to the Protestants because the
good people is, in this particular instance, we got the first alert from George, even though we were in the...
Area Manager Gary Farthing says abuse of NRMA services is occurring in the local area, but not to the extent of metropolitan Sydney. The reason for this, local servicemen covering a smaller localised area.
And they get to know the people who are calling them every week or every month for the same reason. And so they're able to identify the problem with the person and to help them try to overcome the problem next time by advising them the way they should go about having the vehicle repaired.
Mr Farthing says the abuse that does exist mainly involves minor maintenance problems with tyres, ignitions and especially batteries.
Over the last couple of months we've had people that have called us 4 and 5 times within, say, a period of 2 months for flat batteries here.
A local survey will be set up within days, whereby computers will register every service call a specific member makes. For Hunter members wanting to give their opinions about the decision to limit road service calls to 8 a year can call the Newcastle NRMA office. Their call will then be diverted to Sydney for the cost of a local call. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.